The teacher at Taylor said theorem one time. I just teach what's in the book.
Yeah.
Ian Pilak.
Joined the meeting.
We're in the right spot. Let's call the Ed Services meeting to order. Diana is out of town on vacation, in which case we don't expect her attendance. Otherwise, Jenny, you got everybody else who's online?
Yeah,
So
we have Craig online.
fire away.
Good. All right, so good morning, everybody. We are going to make some adjustments to the order of the agenda this morning. We're going to allow the RMS course proposals to go first, so we can get teachers back into the classrooms. We have Mr. Frickelman and Ms. Vitale here, as well as Ms. Graff to present a couple of different courses that the middle school is considering. So Mr. Pickelman, do you mind if we start with you?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share your screen. Which course would you like to start with?
Either one doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll see which one I come up with first.
Yeah, whichever one comes up
first.
first.
The basic. Ready? Nope. Home and auto?
Nope, that's Andrew.
Oh, sorry, I have that backwards. All right, now I'm in the wrong direction. Small engines.
Small end.
There we go. So you're proposing a small engines course. Do you want to just talk us through a little bit about that, and then we'll see if we have any questions?
Sure, so this was talking with Mr. Phillips at the high school for the last couple of years. And just with the understanding that, you know, kids don't get this at home as much anymore. And so trying to give that as a lead into some of the CTE courses at the high school is kind of the basics of it. This summer, I talked with some of the folks at Madison College, and they are willing to help us out with engines and with support and manuals and all that kind of stuff as well. So got a lot of positive things on this end to be able to get that in. I already do some of this in the agriculture class. We do like a week or two of small engine stuff. So some kids do get the idea of being able to take a weed whacker engine apart and everything. So it's good stuff. And it will definitely lead into the high school, which is awesome.
And each of the courses that we're proposing would be elective courses, correct? And so you basically run them based on interest. So if this runs, then something else may not run, correct, Jason?
Correct. And just a little bit of the nuances of the Riverside schedule. So yes, you're 100% right with that. And we have many more courses available than we would run, and we run it based on student interest. I would say that the courses that John and Anna will be proposing today are in the vein of very high popular courses that our students are looking to take. And the more of these that we can offer, the better. Because if a student is not signed up for a music course as they get into 7th and 8th grade, what's available to them is a little bit like they take lots of elective courses over the course of their 7th grade year if they don't have music. And then in 8th grade, they take a lot of different courses. And so our flexibility and the availability of lots of different options, especially in 7th and 8th grade, super helpful for us. So you know, the kid who's like being put into a class that they don't want to take, they have options. I like working with Mr. Pickelman. That's what I want to do as a career pathway. He's offering 4 or 5 different courses that are of interest to me. Art, for whatever reason, is not of interest to me. And so I can continue to like take classes on, you're still exposed to art. It's not like you take that away. In 6th grade, all of our students take all of like the kind of traditional elective courses. And 7th and 8th grade, they can start to like work their way into stuff that they're a little bit more interested in. So I love the connection to the high school. I love the connection to the community, the partnerships with the community. I think this is great. I think the 4 courses you're gonna hear about meet that need for sure.
When you say connection to the high school, tell me more.
So I know that, you know, at the middle school, you want to run courses as an introduction to a pathway that they could potentially take when they get into high school. So if John's offering a small engines course that they would have no entry into the high school to further their understanding or their work in that, that would be a very, in my opinion, a really good course to offer at the middle school. And if you're offering content that would greatly overlap what they would be getting at the high school, that also wouldn't necessarily be a great thing. So just kind of like a taste of small engine, taste of, you know, courses that the high school has been in collaboration with John on. This would be a support you could give at the middle school So kids would already know kind of they have an interest in this when they get into high school, similarly to Intro to Agriculture, which was a new course.
Right.
Like students will know that by the time they get into high school that they would have an interest in it, and the high school team is supportive of it. In fact, that collaboration has been excellent. So that's what I mean when I say like, this course will play well with the high school.
Do we want to consider all four and then talk about next steps with those four?
I think that'd be good. One other question, John, on this, it says how's reading and writing gonna be integrated? Is this the new form we're gonna be using? This looks a little bit different than the ones I've seen before for curriculum adding. This is because the last one we saw for the high school was still an older form that Jesse had used last month. Is this form?
I
Or,
think this is the form Jesse used
Is
last
it?
month. I can go back and look.
Okay, it
but
is.
This was
okay,
the,
for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they've changed and we've asked for some modifications. I'm just trying to get used to them still.
yeah,
Um,
we're all learning.
And I think
Yeah.
some are gonna have more content, maybe, so it's gonna look longer.
Yeah,
and one of the questions on here is reading, and yet for a guy who I can take apart an engine, I can't put it back together. But a 4-cycle engine, a 2-cycle engine, there's a lot of math involved with that. Do we get into the physics of engines and compression and ignition and combustion when we're doing this? Or is it strictly a mechanical, here's how you turn a screwdriver to the left, and here's how you turn one to the right, and here's what a good gasket looks like, and here's what a bad gasket looks like? We have questions in here regarding reading. Do we have any questions in here regarding science and math and actual, I don't want to call it engineering at this point, but just fundamentals of
Yeah.
combustion and compression and ignition?
We go through it,
Okay,
and I mean, I go through it a little bit with the agriculture kids in
Yep.
the couple weeks I have the small engines there. So I think the short answer is yes.
okay,
There's, obviously it's gonna be dependent on the scenario in that class, the makeup of that class and what we're actually getting into, but. And then, obviously I work with Mark Phillips and all those guys at the high school pretty well, so I mean, I'm not too worried about it. And we'll work together and figure out exactly what we wanna do at the middle school versus high school, what are his expectations of the kids coming in, so. I think that's where that all fits in, but yeah, we do get into the science of it and,
okay.
we talk about that.
And there's no text of necessary with this. It looked like it was all small parts that was part of the budget. So
Correct, and
there's no small engine 101 book that you're
No.
planning on buying.
No.
Okay, are they out there? Or do you just-
Madison is going to provide us with, engine manuals
Okay,
that come with with those, I think they're Echo
okay,
brand. So,
okay, yeah, let's keep going on the other ones.
okay, and so intro to public safety.
intro to public safety, this is in collaboration with, NOAA at the high school. And talking about, they have the CNA and EMT courses that are available at the high school. And for me, this one fits right in home for me. 20 years as a firefighter and EMS and all that good stuff, and CPR, first aid instructor, all those good things. So it fits right in with what I do outside of school. So we would be going through whatever we need to go through, including the science of it. So there's the CSI in the classroom. That's some things that I've taught in the past that could be a part of this. I've been working with our SRO, and he's working with the courts and trying to, the judge will come over and talk to the kids, and we'll go through the whole thing. We actually have a couple weeks set up for potentially for a mock trial, and I have all kinds of different things set up in there as well. So kind of three aspects of it. There'd be the law enforcement aspect, there'd be the medical aspect, and there'd be the fire service aspect in this course. But again, very, very, very introductory level type things. So,
There's something in here about a DNR, the game
yeah,
warden.
bringing game wardens in, yeah, because they're law enforcement. Yep. And I have a good reputation with them. They've come out to summer school, and they've, visited the agriculture classes and stuff. So good guys.
Okay. And then Anna, we'll move to your two courses, intro to graphic design.
If you wanna start with the basic formula, I think that.
I can do that.
Time and
Perfect.
here.
Yeah.
So this is a course that I've taught in the past for many years at my old school district. And, I see this as kind of like John's doing the intro or to small engines, but it's getting those kids who don't even think that they would, be able to. This is really geared more toward girls. You know, because girls are not going to take, they're not gonna jump into the small engines class. But they'd be more likely to take a class where it's, just basic home and auto type of information. So, it's not working on cars. It's how to take care of a car. And it's not like we're gonna be doing anything. It's just, basic maintenance, what you need to know to, own a car. And then the basic home part of it is just basic home repairs. It's, things like, you throw a ball through the wind or through a screen, how to fix a window screen. You push open up the screen door and, you break that. How do you fix that? You get mad and you bust a hole in your drywall in your bedroom, how do you fix that? So, those are the types of things. I had a lot of success with this in the past in my old district because we really liked it. So we go through units on a variety of, home maintenance things, weatherization, how to take care of, things outside, inside the house.
I think it's a good lead in with the high school classes, kind of going back to that aspect of it. We have the, home maintenance class at the high school.
Right.
This would be a good
and then
tie in with that
and
at
there's
the high school level
residential
as well.
construction class, so this is kind of like an overview. And so it can feed into a lot of different high school courses. That even if, they're not sure about it, they have like a little taste of it, and, oh, I liked doing this, and then go on to something else at the high school.
And our electives compared to the high school, at the high school, correct me if I'm wrong, like a class like this at the high school would be a trimester at 80-ish minutes per day, is that right?
Yeah, 70.
70, okay. For us at the middle school, an elective is a quarter-long class, and it's a 40-minute skinny. And so when you hear about things like this is an introduction to, this is like a getting your feet wet in this kind of content area. Just like that is the timing of it is really allows us to do that, right? When you get to the high school and it indicated an interest in this kind of subject matter, you'd be able to cover that much more depth. Have the time to do that too, so.
Yeah, and Jason referenced pathways before, so I mean, between the plethora of course options available in surface pathways, as well as production pathways. I think it's a good primer, and I know the teams have been working together, to make sure that flows.
Right.
Okay. And the other one?
Graphic design.
Yeah, the intro to graphic design, I've noticed that at the middle school level, we don't really have anything that feeds into those classes, the graphic design classes. And people think of graphic design as, screen printing t-shirts. As a former graphic design teacher at the high school level for 10 years, there's more to graphic design. I mean, with today's world of technology, there's a lot of digital content out there that, people are doing. And to feed that into the high school and to introduce kids to that, that's not a career path that I don't think that we have anything addressing that. And it doesn't matter if you go work for, a local company and, they want you to handle their website, or they want you to handle their, marketing. I mean, it's the world of marketing now is expanding to a lot of different areas. And I just think it'd be important to incorporate that at the middle school level. It would be an introduction. I mean, we're not gonna, be, screen printing or anything like that. It's gonna be mostly digital design, but introducing the students to all those opportunities out there that they have. And we'd be using apps that we already have access to. So we already have, the Adobe Suite And, there's, online things that they can do. The middle school, media center, IMC, just got a printer. And, I mean, I know how to use it, and let's use it. I mean, let's make posters for, have the kids make posters for teachers, where the teachers tell them, and it would really emulate what's happening in the real world. Here, a teacher says, I need this type of design, I need this type of poster, and then the student designs it, gives them, proposals, and then we print it out on the wide format printer that we've got. Let's use that equipment.
Any questions about the graphic design course?
None from me, Sam, Lori, or any other member online with a hand up, but I do want to, talk about them in a larger discussion as opposed to just individually like you suggested.
That makes sense.
So, but
So let's talk about, it would make sense to me to talk about these 4 courses and then pull the Avid courses separately than that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Next steps for these 4 courses, would you like me to move forward for a proposal on the December board meeting? Do you have further questions about them?
I have just a bigger overarching question is that, I think it was, I was a freshman in high school, I think, and I took 4 consecutive quarters. One was typing. One was, maybe it was home ec. I think I even cooked. And I know I sewed. And I can't even remember what the other one might have been drafting. Okay, and I can type well over 60 words, probably 70 or 80 words a minute. Pretty proud of that, and I took that out of that. And I've never not had a balanced checkbook. But that's just me. My question is that even though that I love the concept of these real world skills and being able to introduce them where kids would not otherwise get exposed to them, or nobody took them aside and showed them at home how to do something like that. They didn't grow up in a cooking household. Maybe they didn't grow up in a balanced checkbook household. Maybe they never grew up with a small engine around them. I don't have an issue with our district offering them because they're not getting anywhere else. And we hear that all the time, that we just don't get enough of those real world opportunities. I'm looking at this both as a resource, allocation. How many, I only see one person's, Anna's name is listed as a licensed staff, but that's not a new licensed staff. Obviously, you're not adding any staff with this, Jason. Are we losing any bandwidth to do other things that are required? Are we losing Avid opportunities? Are we losing music and art opportunities? Are we losing math and science opportunities? Did we create a bigger pie so that we can all get a chunk of it? Or what are the kids not going to be able to get that they were able to get before? Because we still only have a building that's so big with so many kids, with so many teachers. And that just means that now this is going to give them an opportunity. That means we're going to take it from somewhere else. We didn't make it bigger. We didn't go to a trimester program or add another year of school. So what are we trading off? And is that trade-off worth it for us from a philosophical perspective, both as a board as well as educators? Does the trade-off that we want to make in order to stick with the strategic plan? And Anna, I think you touched on it, and John, you did as well. If the new strategic plan is a lifelong love of learning, yeah, this helps. Okay, so I agree with the concept, but I need to understand that there's a bigger strategy here, not just these are some fun courses that we'd all like to take. And do we have that addressed as administrators? I mean, has this been discussed in central office? The board, I don't think would weigh in on it if we heard from high level. So I'm not asking the teachers anymore. You've done your part. You've presented what you want to do and why you want to do it. I want to understand from the admin, and is this the direction we want to go from a total product offering? And Lori and Sam, and I'll let you ask the same or similar questions or additionally, but that's my overarching question on this. I want to make sure this is intentional. I don't like doing things unintentionally.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a crack at this. So I know in 2018 when I started, our elective program looked like. Specific to the role that John Pickleman is filling right now was very like the typing 7 or 80 words a minute. Like in 6th grade, you were getting that for 100%, and in 7th grade and 8th grade, you're going to get maybe a little bit more of the same of that. I'm going to be able to utilize like intro to Google, or I'm going to be able to like I can work on a spreadsheet. Like kind of like those like accessories to like Microsoft Office or Google Suite or whatever. And some of the feedback that we had been getting was like that feels very like 20th century. Like it feels very much like I'm gonna be a better type, and it's great. It's a great skill to have.
That was 20th century.
And I'm presently a tech guy at like 30 words a minute. So like, and so some of the conversation around like, in 6th grade, we make all of our, it sounds terrible, we make all of our 6th grade students take a battery of like the basics and electives, right? So every 6th grader takes art, every 6th grader takes like an intro to computers and a tech ed class and health and world geography. And like everybody's gonna get kind of like that basic introduction to all of those things. But these courses are new proposals for 7th and 8th grade, and they're just like widening the range of courses that a kid could take, would want to take, but would not be like forced to take like they are in 6th grade. So we're getting feedback that I'm gonna say John has been getting. Anna Vitale, I don't know if you've met her, besides just the course proposal, brand new to us. Amazing, coming from Dodgeland. Dodgeland was very sorry to see her go. We're worried about that. And like, so I think they're looking at this as an opportunity to kind of take off on students' interests and take that basics that they're getting in 6th grade and expand upon that, the student interest, not being forced to take classes unless they want to take, because they get that in 6th grade. But in 7th and 8th grade, they just get an opportunity to like grow in that pathway that will be flourishing more at the high school. I do think that it is intentional. I think that we are, I feel like we're moving, this is past like Art 6, Art 7, Art 8, or tech, Computer 6, Computer 7, Computer 8. And just broadening that out to hit the many interests that our students are gonna have and the various pathways they're gonna see at the high school. So not that that's been a directive from central office. I'm not gonna, if there's a bus throwing under, that's not this. I think it's intentional, like this is gonna be a better product for our students. They're gonna be able to do more with this information than they would have done 20 years ago with that information that they got.
I'd say building off of that, so a 7th grader, let's say, who is not in music in our building, would have a period and a half, correct? Because Syed is the other half. So a period and a half a day, year round, that they need something in their schedule for. And so these courses being quarters long, that is 6 classes they have to fill per year, right? 6 as a 7th grader, and then an additional 6th as an 8th grader. And so having these offerings where Pickleman is like, okay, I'm gonna run small engines this quarter, gives kids like, okay, those kids haven't seen that opportunity yet. Knowing that, okay, they have 12 courses they have to fill over their time with us as a non-music student. And so we wanna make sure that they're not having to repeat courses because they have exhausted all of the course possibilities. And we have some students doing that right now, right? Like retaking Cold War, and Stephen like creates a Cold War #2, right? Like retaking classes with Mr. Pickleman because he's awesome and the kids love him. And he's like, okay, well, I will figure out how to make this a new experience for them, which is great. But if we could give them a true like passion area and be able to open up those opportunities, it just makes that more possible when we have more offerings on the table.
And I would,
No, go ahead.
I would even build that on, so I'm, selfishly from the high school lens, we're very excited about this as well. Given that the individualized approach that a lot of our courses in CTE allow for, really allows kids to fly. And so what happens then if they've been off a leg up getting to the high school with some of these skills, like individually, they're gonna flourish to an even greater degree and engage in like even advanced levels of work within any of these areas, which then translates. I mean, we've seen the success with it's like DECA or with Skills USA, and the list goes on and on with the sort of like organizations that kids have been involved in, and then subsequently compete in. So I think to get them hooked, especially if we find passion areas for kids, I mean, I think they are gonna fly and have more fun and just rock it when it comes to the high school.
Lori.
I was just gonna add, well, first of all, I was kind of giggling to myself when you were talking about, computer, whatever, 6, 7, 8. I remember my son had to take a computer class and it was on spreadsheets and he's never used a spread. I was like, teach me, I want to know. But I don't think he's used it since then. Not saying, and he won't remember, all those little codes. So, but what I wanted to say, what I appreciate is, I don't know, a couple months ago, Jason, you brought to us, I know we're gonna start talking to students in 8th grade to get a pathway. I think up until we start doing this, I don't know how many kids would know their pathway necessarily for high school. So I appreciate that and I see the connection and how it's going to help. So.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, I mean, as a new teacher coming in, my first quarter, that's one of the things that I've noticed is that kids are retaking classes because we do have a limited amount of electives, to offer to them. And I feel like we're losing kids. I mean, I talk to kids, one of the first things that we talk about is, what are your career interests? I don't know. Well, that's because they haven't been exposed to anything. So until we give them that introduction to a variety of different things, we're gonna still hear, I don't know. But we gotta start doing that at 7th grade, start putting that in their head of, offering all these different things, because we gotta start feeding these pathways. And people think that tech ed is just Woods class. No, it's more than Woods class. I mean, there's so many different technologies that these kids could be learning that the only way to do it is in these classes. So that's just my observation as a first quarter teacher.
Okay, Greg, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to throw in that I agree. I was a band and just a college-bound child in school, but taking a small engines course actually changed my life. It opened up the whole idea that, there's a different talent set out there that I didn't have any clue about. But anyway, what I also wanted to mention is some of the other feedback that I've heard about at the middle school, that when it comes to elective offerings, sometimes there's just not as many for students to choose from. So that limits the availability of a child to take a particular class gets filled up. And we talk about passion areas. Okay, well, if a child gets automatically forced into choir or study hall, well, that's not their passion area. You can imagine that becomes a behavior issue as well. So I think that offering some more electives that children might be interested in, even if they might not have had a particular love for that area at the moment, might actually allow for them to learn something new and still no longer become a behavioral problem in class. So I think this is a good step.
Okay, great comments. Thanks, Craig. Sam, any comment?
No, I agree with what everyone said. I think it's a good opportunity, and I think that we need, not that we don't already have great offerings, but I think we need even more of them at the middle school and even at the high school down the road. We can have them when it comes to practical skills, things like what we've been talking about today. So yeah, I think it's great work.
So John and Anna and Jason, I mean, I love the idea of the courses. My only overarching concern is I never knew how you guys use the word fidelity in previous conversations. I know what that means. I use efficacy, which is just the same word, I guess.
There you go.
I just don't want it to be a distraction to your, and your bandwidth. And so once you try to offer everything, you inevitably get bad at something. And so I don't want to start losing that by trying to keep too many options on the table. We have to stay focused. I agree, and I guess I wasn't aware of it, Lori and Craig, thanks for bringing that up, that we did have a limited number of electives and the duplication. And sure, I could take Woods 2 years in a row and learn about a planer one time and a bandsaw the next time, and you'd probably figure out how to make it interesting for me. But it'd be nice to get a little bit more exposure. So that's just an overarching, more philosophical issue. It's not to say that these aren't the right courses and that these shouldn't be wrapped up in one resolution, Jenny, to be presented. It's just a matter of then Jason, just keep your fingers out, or keep an eye on the course book and make sure that there's not items in there that need to go away because they're just not getting the enrollment, or they're a distraction to Anna and John because now they have to prep for something that nobody's interested in. Yeah. And so I'd rather be doing everything well than trying to be everything to everybody. So I just don't want to lose sight of that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, and if you wanna run back.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. You're more than welcome to stay. I'm going to kick you out. I imagine that you'd rather be with the kids. Perfect. All right, and then we do have 2 courses on the docket, both related to Avid at the middle school level. I'll turn it over to Jason and Leanne again to kind of give an overview of the 2. I will pull them up on the screen.
Bring up Avid 7.
Yep. Oh, boy. I joke when people have too many tabs open, then I get a little weak. There's like a lot of tabs open right now. Oh, don't even.
And I closed them all when I got here, so I'm really bad.
All right, Avid 7.
Okay, so, and Leanne and I'll take team both of the next 2 course proposals. I think, I don't want to speak for, I think Avid 7 is kind of a logical next step for us at the middle school. We've had really good success with our Avid 8 elective. We feel like we want to offer that opportunity a year earlier and make the entry point at the middle school 7th grade instead of 8th grade. It does not impact any sort of like FTE around where we'd be hiring another teacher to do this. Stephen Frank, who's our Avid 8 elective teacher, would be the Avid 7 and then Avid 8 elective teacher. So there's still 24 to 28 kids filtering from the middle school to the high school each year, which is what it is right now. They're just getting to it a year earlier in our building. I think that we're in a really good place. Our 7th and 8th grade core teachers, majority of them have been trained at the Avid Summer Institute. I believe that the building is ready to roll that down to 7th grade. And it's a logical next step in districts that grow their Avid program is to roll it down. At Cardinal Heights, at Sun Prairie, our previous district, it's an 8th and 9th grade building, and they rolled that down to 7th grade at the middle schools. And there shouldn't be any sort of like a budgetary impact to what Josh and the high school are doing. They wouldn't have to offer a second section of it at the high school. It's just one more section at the middle school. We have our goal to be Avid school-wide is supported by us rolling down the 7th grade. Again, I don't get to really say officially it's a no-brainer, but it's a no-brainer for us at the building level at least. It seems logical for us to be doing this for 25, 26 roll down 7th grade. Our data has been very, very, very good around Avid 8 to the point where we feel like we should be doing that. So.
So this is just for the kids in the Avid
This
elective.
is just Avid elective.
This is just Avid elective.
An earlier entry point for those students. So we would recruit out of our 6th graders to go into 7th grade. There's a lot of data that shows like positive impact on high school course taking by being part of an Avid elective program for 2 years at the middle school level. Like they are more likely to take higher level courses at the high school level because they've had 2 years of tutorials and like practice at like that higher level thinking within the Avid elective class. And so we would love to see that play out at the high school level, like them coming to the high school as a more coherent group, like after 2 years of being together. And we're hoping that will help with retainment at the high school as well, like being able to say, like, these guys have been an Avid family for a little bit longer. So yeah, we're very excited about the possibility of being able to roll it down. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Which I think leads us to the Avid Excel course that the team is proposing as well. So we can take these two together if you want to share a little bit about Avid Excel.
Yeah, so we recognize, so Avid Excel is another elective course, but it is more highly specialized for our long-term EL students. So students with that long-term EL designation, Avid recognized that come middle school, if those students haven't exited the long-term EL status, that had negative impacts come high school and on post-high school and post-secondary, like college placement, career opportunities, things like that. And so Avid created Avid Excel to attempt to address kind of that long-term EL status. And so the idea is that this works in tandem with our Avid elective class. So if both of these get approved, what would happen is in 6th grade, we would recruit out of 6th grade for Avid. And then we would place students in Avid Excel or in Avid 7 based off of their need. So Avid Excel focuses on language acquisition and academic discourse. So being able to take what are you doing in your current classes and being able to elevate that to help students with their comprehension, their vocabulary, their language skills to be able to perform at a higher level. Whereas the Avid elective class focuses more on career, like college and career readiness. And so the Avid Excel program is focusing on giving them the academic skill set to then be able to engage in the college and career prep stuff come high school. So the idea is they would enter Avid Excel. We would take those numbers of students who have that long-term EL designation in our Avid Excel program into consideration when recruiting for Avid 7. So we are recruiting one cohort of students. That group then would stay with us in 8th grade, and then they would merge together as the Avid 9 group. So Avid Excel goes away at the high school, hopefully, right? Their long-term EL designation would go away at that point as well. But we would be giving to the high school one complete group of students. So all of these students do our college and career trips together. They do our family nights together. They do all of that. But what they are getting in their Avid class looks very different based off of their need. And so our data is really showing like the need for this. The courses that Katie and Megan are full-time ML teachers in our building currently. The courses that they are teaching to these students right now exist. This would just be giving them a curriculum by which to teach those courses. So providing them that research-based curriculum to be able to support what they are already doing in class. So it's not like this group, this particular group of students wouldn't be a brand new group of students who would be pulled from electives. They already have a class that exists. Avid Excel would just be the curriculum in place for those students to help them be able to achieve what they need to achieve. If that makes sense.
Now, this one has a much higher cost associated with it. I say
It
much
does.
higher. It's not a $900,000 new curriculum.
Correct.
Only $11,000,
Training
but
component to it.
yeah, how's that fit in your budget, Jason?
Some of it comes out of our budget for sure.
Yeah.
Jenny and I would tag teaming each other, with making sure that we find the funds to be able to do that. And it is, I mean, the lion's share of that is a training component of that. After a few years of that, then that kind of big cost goes away. That's like a kind of self-sufficient program for the most part. But it does have a training component in the summers.
Yeah, and we would be able to use some Title III dollars as well to support it. Ashley Pyrick is online as well because she's been a part of the work. I think the strength of Avid is that professional development piece, and it does require time during the summer for us to go to a summer institute. They also set up a strong leadership team. So Jason and I are required to attend along with the Avid Excel teacher so that Jason and I ensure that we're putting the right pieces in place at the school and district level to support the long-term implementation. When we're looking at our access exiting data, it's pretty clear that we have some work to do at the middle school level for MLs. I will give huge kudos to our ML teachers, multilingual or EL, English language teachers. Same means the same people, but they are incredibly dedicated to the kids and are working very diligently right now to ensure that they have coursework in place, but they have asked for curriculum or materials to help support that the growth there. And we are excited about this opportunity. We will be doing another site visit to Waukesha. Ashley and Leanne got a chance to go to Waukesha last year and came back very excited about it. Jason and I and the ML teachers have not yet had an opportunity to do that, but we do have something set up February 12th. Of February 11th. So after our February Ed services, I will be jetting off to Waukesha for that as well.
Okay. Questions, Lori?
How many students do you anticipate?
And so that number will change every year based off of what the long-term EL student population looks like coming from the elementary level. So that is in flux. So Excel, for next year, I think the numbers would be, so in year one of implementation, we would be looking to put 7th and 8th grade long-term ELs together to be able to have that teacher teach one time, right, that course content. And then when those 7th graders become 8th graders, then they would get the 8th grade course content. But for next year, that would be 14 long-term ELs in Avid Excel. And then that would impact our regular Avid numbers because I recruit one full pool of students.
Join the meeting.
The Avid 7 numbers would look like 23 and the Avid Excel would be for 7th grade would be like 7. So we would have 30 between the two of them. And that's roughly the same at the 8th grade. I think it's 7. And then I would recruit 23 for the 8th grade for next year. So that right now we are saying like we have capped it at 24 in the previous years, but we would look to increase that number so that if any students are leaving between middle school and high school, if they make that decision to go to Endeavor or wherever, we are giving a full class of students to the high school so they don't have to recruit to fill seats.
So right now, I don't know if I understood. In 7th grade, you're looking at a total of 20. How many total would you be bringing into Avid for 7th?
So Avid,
Take away Excel or any of that, like you have a
30.
total 30. So if a student is, are you automatically trying to pull in students that are on the, okay.
So we would be working with Ashley Pyrick, who's on this call. She and I would be reaching out to the families with long-term EL designation to say,
Okay.
This is a program that we think is the best fit for your student. Populating our Avid Excel program that way, and then recruiting with our application process, our interview process, and doing that for the remaining seats every year,
Okay.
whatever that number is.
Okay. I guess and I think it's great. My concern is that you're taking some of those students that maybe aren't on the long-term EL. I don't want to be taking away the opportunity from them. Do you get what I'm saying? Like I want the equity on both sides.
Yep.
So, that was why I was trying to get an idea.
And that's why we increased the number to 30, so that we have that ability to play around. So each year, it's typically between 5 and 10. Like 10 would be a really large number, and Ashley can chime in. Like that would be a very large number for long-term EL designation in this district, but it's not unheard of. So 5 to 10 students being serviced with that, like curriculum with that piece. And then we said, well, on the smallest end, that would mean 20 regular Avid students. And that's a difference of 4, right? Typically, we would have recruited 24 for that. And so it would just be 20 that we would have for that year if we went on the absolute highest end, which doesn't typically happen.
Okay. That Lori is in line with one of my questions. The new document that we've put together here for coursework edition about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. I think one of the first policies that Jared had added to the policy book was target class sizes. And that was target class sizes for grades for electives. I scanned through this a couple different times. I don't see that we have a measuring stick for class size in these documents. Am I missing it? Is it in this grid where?
I think it's at the very top. It says like anticipated enrollment.
Sure.
And so like in Pickleman's, I think he had said 100 because he was hoping.
Yeah, I saw the 100 on his, yeah. Okay. And Leanne, I'm thinking more of a go, no go.
Yes.
Okay, when do we keep offering it? When does it when is it no longer viable? If we have a target of 15 kids in a course and we're at 12, now you run into the risk of, well, they were, not so much this one, this happens more in the advanced courses, which, hey, they were planning on taking this pathway. And as a junior and senior, now we're only down to 8 kids and yet we're still forced to offer it because, well, we told them we were gonna offer it, but now we're below the threshold and now we're taking up a teaching hour with a teacher who could be teaching 25 kids, but now we're only teaching 8. And I don't see it as much of a problem on the front end, but once you start going down a pathway, nonetheless, this document doesn't have, to my, on my inspection, I see the anticipated enrollment. I don't see minimum threshold for offering the course. That's something that I think we get to more in the high school probably than in the middle school. But something that we have to clear that bar in a course description just to make sure we're in line with that policy that Jared added to the course book. And keeps us right-sized with the FTEs and the students and how we're offering them. So that's not exactly what Lori just asked, but I just want to make sure that if there's an adjustment to this document, Jenny, in the future, that we take that into account to make sure we're thinking about that, the go, no go for the.
Perhaps I can just make reference to the class size policy.
The class size policy, hey, what's the go, no go? You know, when do we stop offering it? If we can't get more than 5 kids, what do we do? And I'm not saying that's the case in this one, it's just that's tangential, but it's similar. Or how does it deplete another course that's being offered that sucks them all into this one and then that one gets less?
And it's not a requirement. So,
Right.
you know, it's an elective. So if you have families that don't think that this is the pathway for them, even being on a long-term, you know, EL, I don't want to, you know, assume that all those students are going to be interested in that.
And full disclosure, like the Avid Excel side of this is going to be below the class size threshold
Right.
every year. Like this class.
And that's good, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, this
we
class
come
may
to you
run
in
with 5.
10 years and we're
This
like,
class-
hey.
This class may run with 5, but it's
Yes.
always gonna be then like balanced with more in the other class.
Yeah.
If there's 3 in this class, Katie or Megan are running a class of 3 then anyway, like they're doing that right now. If there's 3 that would qualify for this program, they're already running a course of 3. And so, I mean, I 100% understand what you're saying, and I just feel like in approving this course, we would have to be comfortable with the Excel side of it is likely always going to be in single digits to 10. But we will balance it off of what the other side of that is then.
Yeah, and I can add a comment on the course proposal and make a link to the course, the course
Mhm.
I think
size.
Ashley might be trying to say something.
Ashley?
No, I may be wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just gonna jump in and say, because Excel kind of it fits under our like ML programming. Like Jason had mentioned, class sizes may be a little bit smaller. For instance, we run like newcomer classes, and most of the time there's only 4 to 5 students in those classes because we don't have 15 newcomers at one time during the school year. So I think Avid Excel would kind of fit under that umbrella because it's ML programming, that the class size might not always be as high as we would want it in other elective classes, if that makes sense.
And nowhere in there am I trying to scrub a course due to enrollment, but I used the word before, Jason, you repeated it back to me, and that's intentional. I don't like things to be assumed or accidental, that we should be intentional about why we're doing something. And if it's intentional that we're running a smaller course, then it's intentional running a smaller course. Those are just targets in that policy. They're not requirements. So, but let's be aware of them. And then we have a good answer, and Ashley just answered it. This is why it is what it is. And that's perfectly fine, as long as we're just intentional about it. Okay, any other hands online?
Nope. I don't
Okay.
think.
Sam or Lori, anything else? Okay, I guess resolution for the whole 6 of them, or one for the
I'll probably-
tech and one for the Avid?
I'll probably do 6 together.
Okay.
And just add the courses.
Okay, that's fine, yep,
Good. All right.
okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
I will move into director report just very briefly. Another update from the science department at the high school. I know we have been filling you in along the way. As you recall, the high school team has been looking at their course sequencing options to better meet student needs, as well as ensure that we're meeting the state standards and the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards. The team is looking at proposing a new course, which would be named something other than Science 9, but right now it's called Science 9. For 1 credit, that would include both physics and earth science standards. And then students would be taking biology in 10th grade and chemistry in 11th
Tiffany
grade.
Listel,
Um,
join the meeting.
I would love to know how to fix that, because that didn't always happen, and it is so distracting.
At the board meeting on one, last Monday,
That was
just
very
like
distracting.
rapid fire.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out on the back end how to fix it, and I couldn't.
It didn't
so-
used to happen.
No, I know, that's why I think it drives me crazy. You
Yeah,
can see how
that's
ADHD I am when I have
No,
to
it's
like.
been bugging me too, but I'm
Are
like.
you in the,
that's
you're
not
you
my-
in the director's report, or are you on the WHS course book? What do you-
I am on the director's report.
Okay, because I don't see a document of, what.
I am just reading. from
That's-
the-
Oh, that's what I was.
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
I see 3 things on summer school or calendars, but I don't see what
Yep,
your
nope,
science,
this
okay.
is my
I
own.
just want to make sure we're on, okay,
Yep,
got it.
nope, good. And so they are working on, potentially adding that course. They are also talking about a way for a more advanced science track where students would take what would be considered like advanced science 9, which would be done in 1 trimester versus 2 trimesters. And then they could take, Project Lead the Way Biomedical Science as freshmen, which would give them more opportunity for advanced science coursework as juniors. They're talking about how they would phase this in, because obviously you can't just change it immediately. And so they're working through questions like, how does this affect coursework as it relates to teacher licensure? How does it affect the Laude system? How does it affect freshman scheduling? And then staffing issues. They are doing site visits to other high school to observe instruction and talk about different curriculum options. They are continuing to pilot the materials through OpenSciEd, which is an open source science curriculum in biology in particular. So the plan,
Okay, before you continue, let's back up to the introduction.
okay,
Because I don't have that document. I just want to get back on the same page, because part of the time I was looking for it.
sorry.
What does that mean? Is this a curriculum team that's currently looking at everything at
At the high
At the high school?
Yep, so
Science.
if you
Okay,
remember.
Just an update on the
Yep.
curriculum for this, how everything ties together for science.
Yep.
From 9 through 12.
Yep, and
Okay.
as you remember, 6 through 8 adopted science curriculum last year
Yeah,
because
as I
they had a
remember.
higher
I don't remember anything.
you know, as they had and so they were working as a 6-12 team, but they had to diverge a bit because their needs were very different. And so where the high school science team is now, compared to where the middle school science team is now, where they're in the first year of implementation of Amplify. And so when they were reviewing the standards, 9-12, they note that they were missing some of the earth science and some of the physics standards through their typical course sequence. And so that's why they're re-examining what science in 9th grade.
Is this the
might
same
look like.
team that was working on the middle school and the amplified, or is this?
This is the full high school science team.
Okay.
Versus it being it was the full middle school science team at the time that was working on the middle school piece.
Okay.
So the nice thing is they're specialized, so they're able to do that.
And I'm assuming they're still collaborating with the with RMS, make sure that we are aligning.
Yeah, and the
Because we
alignment,
always see that
yeah,
break, we don't want that
exactly.
break concern, and I think that was why originally we thought of doing it, right?
Exactly.
Why we're trying to bring
See,
that.
you don't remember all of it either.
Well, I have a little bit more.
You asked a question, right? Right? That's what we did, right?
Mine was follow up, yours was,
I was gonna say something like that, but I didn't get to. So their plan is to bring a more formal proposal in spring of 2025 with the actual course proposal coming in November of 2025, which is when we're bringing our high school course proposals to everyone. So just a quick update on that, so you're not thrown.
And is
through
that all
spring.
in line with the curriculum calendar?
Yes.
Put together?
Yep. And we're going to
3 or 4
revisit
months
that
ago.
in January.
Yeah.
Yep, because we were gonna revisit that every year. Yep.
Okay.
All right, elementary literacy. As you know, we're having a review team that has pulled together to look at different sets of curriculum materials per Act 20. We had a day where we had, I think, 7 or 8 companies come and present to us. After a deeper dive, we are down to 2 different companies and 2 different sets of materials. We're looking at HMH into reading and Benchmark Advance. Both of these materials also have Spanish versions to work with our dual language program. And they felt like they met the criteria for Act 20 well and would meet the needs of our students. We are going to be taking a cross-section of teachers across our buildings to do a pilot of those 2 sets of materials. We're training teachers in December, those teachers who are interested in the pilot. And the plan will be to begin the pilot in January when we come back from winter break. The pilot will run 6 to 8 weeks. There'll be opportunities for folks to go observe, to dig more deeply into the materials, with the hope that we will have a decision at March Ed Services about which set of materials we want to move forward with, and then a formal proposal to the board at the March board meeting. We are also in the midst of working on not only the Ames Web implementation, which is the assessment that we are using for K through 3rd grade, which is the state mandated assessment. We do need to create a reading plan for any student who's in the bottom 25th percentile on that assessment. And so I'm working with the literacy coaches and the Title I reading teachers, Sarah and the special ed department, to talk about what that will look like. Those students under the 25th percentile also needed what's called a diagnostic assessment, which is just a digging in a little bit deeper to where a breakdown in their reading skills are. And then we put the reading plan in place, and there's parent communication that goes with the reading plan as well. We don't look for parent permission per state law for the reading plan. We look for communication with the parent for that. And so the reading plans will have the diagnostic assessment and the reading plans have a very strict timeline, but it looks like those reading plans will be implemented in February. And to be fair, we're doing a lot of work with our students who are below the 25th percentile already through our Title I reading program, through special ed, specially designed instruction, and with our Reading Core program, which we have in 3 of our buildings. We feel like we're in good shape with that. We just need to make sure that our I's are dotted and T's are crossed as far as the paperwork with the reading plan goes. So we will be working together with that.
Does Act 20 get involved in that reading plan at all?
Yes, it pretty much dictates.
Yeah.
what the reading
Okay,
plan
so
looks
that's
like.
why it is a new reading plan, because Act 20 mandated it. right?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
this is an outflow of that.
Exactly, exactly. All right, any questions about that in particular? All right, so our next update is summer school. As I believe that I had emailed, I would like to welcome Jason Whitaker as our new summer school director. So thank you very much, Jason. Excited to work with him. He has many years of experience. I will not enumerate how many, being the summer school director in Sun Prairie. So he brings with us a lot of experience. Previously, he actually helped us connect with the Sun Prairie summer school director as well as we worked through the summer school program. So he's excited to learn more about it. He's already been working really closely with Cheryl on some different staffing issues and whatnot. My plan today is just to give you a brief update and then allow you to provide Jason any feedback in particular that you have about summer school. Of course, I'm not finding my summer school notes that I had ready to roll, so I'm gonna have to wing this. Oh, yeah, no, it's okay.
How prepared the new summer school director is.
I would, exactly. First and foremost, what you see in your agenda are the daily schedule and the calendar. I know we had a couple of months ago brought to you a different schedule starting a bit later. We decided to revert back to our previous schedule for a couple of reasons. One, we were concerned it wasn't very family friendly because it was starting later. And I know if families have to work, they probably want to drop their child off and get to work. I know part of the concern was that it starts early, so kids were coming later. The thought was perhaps if we start later, they will just come even later than that. And so we kept our time as we had it previously. We were also losing what's called FTE, which is how we get reimbursed because it was a shorter day. And so we kept those times the same as we've had previously. You can see we have two different calendars. The first calendar is just the typical summer school calendar. We're maintaining the 20 days that we have had previously. It always gets a little wonky over the 4th of July. We want to be able to give teachers and families a bit of a break so they can use the 4th of July holiday for that. You see that again, because our school year goes a little bit later this year, which has been a topic of discussion. Summer school starts a little later this year as well. We'll be starting with the teacher workday on the 17th. Usually they have an open house that evening, and then the first day with students would be the 18th of June, running through the 18th of July. The strength and speed calendar, we separated out just because it was a little bit confusing. That runs June 16th through July 24th. And those are dates that we have confirmed with the teachers who are teaching the strength and speed. When we talk about changes for next year, I know one request was to determine if there was a way to offer PE credit for strength and speed. There is a very specific number of hours that you have to be in class over the summer to be able to get that credit. And it's just not feasible through strength and speed to do that. They would literally have to attend like 3 hours a day of strength and speed to be able to earn that credit. We are exploring some options potentially online that we might be able to do that. In talking with DPI and looking at our current course book, it would make sense for it to be an elective PE credit, if you will, not to replace the 9th grade PE, because the 9th grade PE has a very set curriculum to ensure that they're reaching each area that they need to be reaching. So we are still investigating that piece. I have spoken with the PE department just very briefly about it. And I know that's something that Jason and I will continue to take a look at, but just offering credit for strength and speed is not feasible at this point because it would be so many hours a day that they would need to be engaged in strength and speed. So that is one piece that we're looking at.
Do you have a quick question? So I see that strength and speed has it on the 3rd. I know that they're kind of like their own little thing, but will that be confusing? Because summer school, there's no summer school on the 3rd.
And I believe
So I just want to make sure that that's being communicated to not follow summer school schedule, you know what I mean? For those especially newcomers,
yeah,
you know, the younger students coming in dark.
Yeah, and they used to be on one calendar, but it got rather confusing with all the different shades that you had to have to say like summer school's in session and not strength and speed or just strength and speed. So we decided to divide it out. I believe in the past that has happened where strength and speed's in session, but not typical summer school.
Okay, so we are kind of keeping that as its own little entity outside the summer school.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yep. Then we talked a bit about communication with families. I talked with Carrie Dean, who is the instructional coach who works most closely with the elementary piece. She said that Teachers nominate students who are in need of summer school due to being below grade level in reading or math, and recommend courses that is sent home with families before registration. And then we follow up with phone calls to families who have not registered for summer school that were recommended for summer school. I have some ideas about sort of how to beef that up or track that a little bit better so that the students who are recommended, we are really ensuring that families know that and doing everything in our power to get them to sign up at the elementary level.
When does that start? When does that effort start?
Typically it starts, we are on a semester system at the elementary. So typically that starts like February, March-ish, and then March is when we typically run summer school enrollment. Well, I should say really April, right after spring break is usually when we start summer school enrollment. So we're notifying families early. Schools have parent-teacher conferences at different times at the elementary level, so it's not quite as easy as just making sure that we talk about it at parent-teacher conferences. Also, not every family comes to parent-teacher conferences, so we need to have different ways to communicate that to families with that.
And that's at that point in the game, that's more of an HR matter, is it not? Because Margaret's got to find the staffing for the summer. And that's, I mean, that's what we're backing up from. We're not backing up from, how many kids show up at the door at 7:45. It's how many teachers are there to let them in. And we have to know that enrollment on April 1st so we can set up those contracts. Is that a ballpark?
So we actually will start recruitment for teachers like in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
We put out an application. This year, we are adding a question on the application and is there a course that you would like to teach at summer school? To try to create some more engaging courses that teachers are excited and passionate about teaching. So we start that already back in December, obviously. And then from there, build the courses. If students are not enrolled in the courses, it's just like during the typical school year. We then don't offer the course, and then we have the ability to, I don't know the HR words, but essentially rescind the summer school contract. And we did have to do that last summer where we didn't have enough enrollment.
Okay.
And so there were teachers that we had offered a summer school position to that we didn't have enough students for. So we rescinded that contract. Again, I'm not Margaret, and so those aren't probably the right words.
That's fine.
And so that is like sort of an ongoing process. We do want to shut down enrollment early enough because what we don't want is a whole lot of last minute ads, because that becomes really, really challenging, particularly if the student has specific needs like a health plan or has some need for extra support in classes. And so we'll be working on shutting that down so that we have all of that information for our teachers to go with. Again, Act 20, we do have some requirement to offer specific summer school support to students who are on reading plans, and particularly students who are moving from 3rd to 4th grade who haven't graduated out of a reading plan. We are working with the curriculum companies to find out like what do you offer that would be correlated to what we're doing during the school year with our curriculum that we can offer during the summer. And or do we want to engage our reading teachers over the summer to be providing more small group reading instruction, typically like we do during the school year too. So those are a couple of options that we're looking at for sort of beefing up that academic support. Jason, I know you have some thoughts about the middle school as far as beefing up academics as well, because I know that was a launch from the school board.
And before Jason, you answer and I am interested in that answer. I wanted to understand, is now the time for you to answer that question? You just ended up in this position sometime in the last, I'm going to say 60 days. I know that this has been a topic of interest for the board for at least the last 3 years. And we know that there's been some gaps and maybe some misunderstandings, some missed opportunities. And without putting this all entirely on your shoulders in your first 60 days on the job, I want to make sure we're backing up from that calendar again and saying, okay, when will we know what we know? When do we know what we're going to do? When do we know what we can do? When do we know what we have to do? Where are the changes that we can make? Where are we still kind of stuck with what we've had in the past. And when can we go back to the name balls, balls, balls? Yes. Everybody like that one. Yeah, I mean, and when can we go back to that?
Job number one.
Yeah. Yes, right. I mean, that's obviously the biggest priority is properly naming that again. But that all being said, if your answer is right now, I can give you that full update. Or if it's more of a matter of, no, give me a month or two and let's do this again in January or February, where we can have a better articulated plan. I'm okay with waiting. I don't want to put Jason under the gun right now with a lot of half information. I'd rather you have more time to, line this up and tell us where it's going to be the same and where it's going to be different. And the same isn't necessarily bad, as long as we know, once again, why we're doing it. Is it intentional?
Right.
And this is why we're intentionally changing some other things that were just gaps. So I want to understand your timeline, and before you even answer that, thank you. Okay, thank you for stepping up. Yeah, that's awesome. I think you're the right guy for the job. I appreciate it.
For sure. It's been about 21 days-ish.
Okay, yeah. You always less than 60. Yeah.
And to be fair, so like I don't know. I just want to let you know what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't have the answer for sure. I don't have like,
Okay.
this is how summer school is going to be of equal balance of something kids want to go to, and it's going to address learning loss, and every teacher's going to want to teach it, and it's just going to be this like
Yeah.
utopia of.
But I'm glad those are all in your pot that you're
Yeah,
mixing
yeah,
together.
figure all of it.
That's awesome.
And balls.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So like I working really closely with Jenny and Cheryl. I want to be talking to Mike Cunningham and Jen Pennington, who have been doing kind of the administrator on site for a number of years. And I know Colleen Good would also be somebody who may be in the position I'm in right now, like figuring it all out kind of a thing. But I just want to get a sense of, and from the board, honestly, like feedback on what you're hoping this is going to look like. The number is 10 years in my previous district. So I was a coordinator and or principal of summer school in Sun Prairie for 10 years. And so some of what I need to do is unlearn what I learned there. I mean, the board had a very clear want of what the summer school program was going to be. And then we worked through things like, are we going to count traffic safety as a credit bearing class? Do we want courses that are going to get hundreds and hundreds of kids there? Because the moneymaker for the district. So that was really important in Sun Prairie, was to run courses like strength and speed where hundreds of kids would come every day. Traffic safety, hundreds of kids would come every single day. So I just want to know from lots of different people, what are you looking for this program to be? What are you hoping it accomplishes? And then kind of work from there. So I think it would be really early for me to say like,
Exactly.
I have these answers. Because I've not talked to Mike Cunningham about it, I've not talked to Jen Pennington, I've not talked to Jamie Kopp about it. I mean, it would make some sense for me to talk to him, he's been doing the job for a while. So that's just my plan, right? Like, it's like a 60-day plan or a 30-day plan. Which just getting to the nuts and bolts, I need to learn a lot more about Act 20 than I know right now.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, Dave, and my plan is to just learn a lot and
Okay.
then start to formulate.
Okay, so then on that vein, I'm glad you answered more or less exactly as you did. Then it comes back to two things. When and what do you need from us? And if the answer is what do you need from us is direction, I'm gonna say good luck. The board has not yet, in my 4 years, been able to articulate a clear plan, aside from every now and then we touch on what are we doing with the underperforming kids who are trying to push into the system that need it to get it. Summer learning loss, that's a classic, but there's a lot of kids who aren't at risk of that summer learning loss. And as a former board member had said, he said, but a lot of parents look at it as summer daycare, and that's fine. And it helps with the enrollment. But the board, to my knowledge, has not articulated a plan. Diana, if she were here, I think would come probably the closest to being able to articulate, but that's a singular plan. That's just one board member. The board as a whole has not really weighed in on it. If you wanted to meet with a subset of us or pull ed services together, or like I said, do a subcommittee. I'm sure that we could get 2 or 3 board members to sit with you, as well as what you said, Pennington and Jen, or whoever is, you know, been the, what do you want to call the organizers, the implementers, the executors of that. I think you'd easily get 2 or 3 board members to join you and not have to do it through Ed Services. All the other committees of the board have subcommittees on a regular basis. I think that this would be ripe for that, as long as it met your calendar. So if that goes to part 2, what do you need from us and when do you need it? And if you can still pull that together in the next 2 to 3 months, then, and still hit that April date for enrollment and staffing needs, then it's a, I don't want to say a tight schedule, but the good news is it has a beginning and an end. It doesn't have to last forever, and we can get in and out by March 1st. So I'd say come back to Jenny or Jared or me, and we'll see how many board members want to participate in that. And I'll let them speak as a subcommittee of Ed Services in order to help direct you. If that's how you hope to articulate it or pull it together. And if
like I just need some lay of the land time.
Yeah, no, I get it. And so the other part, which I was in, if Sun Prairie had a plan to boost enrollment for the purposes of, I'll call it income, I'm interested. Okay, so if that means you need somebody from the business office in that discussion as well, then let's make sure we have that person at the table as well too, who understands the mechanisms there of FTEs and reimbursement. So
I'm going to give a huge shout out to Cheryl on that, because in her role from business department to CNI, I think she really does understand that piece. And
in the summer, we beefed that up and got a few more dollars coming in because of recategorization.
Yep.
See, I don't forget that.
And she also discovered in the past, if a kid is excused from summer school for like an excuse reason, we can also count those minutes. So that's something that we'll work on implementing this next coming year too.
Okay.
I know that the dollars isn't the most important from the board, but I do believe it definitely plays a role. And I know we sort of did a self-audit in years past about that and have made some changes to ensure that we are being fiscally sound when it comes to summer school. I think COVID was at a time where we didn't worry as much, just because we wanted to get, especially that first year, kids in seats, and we knew we had to keep small class sizes and whatnot, but kind of realigning with that as well. So I'll talk about a subcommittee for summers.
Yeah, and if we can get, I'd say, what, 2 to 3 meetings in the months of January and February, is that kind of is that a timeline that you think you can work with that gets you in the right direction by, let's say, March 1st?
I think for sure. I think that'd be great.
Okay. So yeah, 2 to 3 meetings in the month of January and February will be the goal for that subcommittee.
Okay.
And Jason gets to direct that traffic. Okay.
Okay.
Traffic safety.
Thank you.
And again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate that.
Next up, we'll go in the order of the agenda. We have the presentation on the student engagement survey, and I will turn that over to Chris and Jason.
Thank you very much. Chris and I often talk about being student driven and data informed, and that it's a journey. And we spent some time last week in Elmbrook School District learning from some colleagues, and one of the things that I left there is that we are further on the journey than we probably give ourselves credit for. And that's a point of pride that we are really focused on students, but also how does the data inform us? And today is just another example of how we are using data to really inform our practices. I just want to thank the members of the committee and Chris for their work around that. Today we want to show some longitudinal data from student engagement survey, but also the parent and caregiver surveys that have gone on for a number of years. Just a reminder that this data is coming from our work from Studer, with Studer. And so for a number of years, we've partnered with Studer to really do 2 things. One is to provide some of these surveys, student, parent, and staff, They also worked with our ESC team and building leadership team to work through continuous improvement. That relationship has sunsetted, so we're no longer partnering with Studer. But again, this survey data comes from our work from Studer. We've talked about it at planning committee, but I think it's important to note that future student engagement surveys would likely be run through school perceptions and really be focused on our core values. And I will bring that to the planning committee in January, the next draft, and get some feedback. I think it's important to note that, you know, the why of this survey is really that student, parent, stakeholder perception is important. And we want to take a look at that data and gain some insights from our stakeholders. It's also connected to our strategic plan, our mission and vision, and this model of continuous improvement. And then the last thing before I turn it over to Chris is that it's important to note that the survey questions on a 5-point scale. And so it goes from strongly disagree through strongly agree. And so it's just important to note that the 5-point scale. And Chris will walk us through some of the data, and then we'll close out with kind of what do we do with this data? So what, now what, right? What do we do with this data? And we'll take questions there. So thank you.
Jenny, you want to keep going down. So the first step we're going to look at is going to be the results from the student experience survey. And Studer always broke it down for us to help us find what our bright spots, our highest rated items were for the students, and our opportunities or our lowest rated. So this first slide here is showing you in 2024, our bright spots were that they enjoy their electives, they believe their learning is important in the school, and that they have opportunities to be successful. And then each of those we have here, these are the district level scores. Each building does get their individual score, so that this might be overall because there's, you know, 1,000 kids at the high school affected by those, right? The opportunities for electives are high at the high school, and it might be weighing that, but then there might be a different building that is going to have lower scores in there. So the principals and the district office do get to see those. And then last year from our students, they feel that students are nice and show respect in their school is one of the lowest points. And that is one that I know that many of the administrators, if that was a low one, was something they were addressing this year as something they wanted to work on. I like going to school each day. And then I think my school is clean. I would like you to notice that in this one, I'm going to point it out now, the students have it as one of their lowest 3 and their parents have it as one of the highest 3. So it's just an interesting point. I feel like our custodians do an amazing job when I walk through our building. So I just think it's like,
I thought the same thing. Clean to kids is very different than clean to adults.
and
I think sometimes like they may see something that maybe looks old and they don't think that's
Yeah,
clean.
true.
Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I totally do. I felt like the wording of this, like, do kids clean up after them? Like, what were they reading when they heard that versus what I see and what the parents see? And so I just thought it was interesting that it was there. So we then have on the next slide, the last 3 years of data for these. I think there's a couple of things we need to be point out. I don't have it there. You see the star by 2023. What happened is they worked on the questions at Studer, and there was rewording of the questions that happened between the 2022 and 2023. Once you reword something, there's going to be a response bias. They maybe thought that we were soliciting responses with the old wording of the question. So by changing it, the scores are going to change for some of the questions, and we don't have the data for which of them changed and how, or I don't have it. So noting that, and then also, I just wanted to make sure you guys noticed that in 2023, we had a non-response issue happening there with 500 less students responding to the survey than the year before and the year after. And this is before me time, so I don't know for sure, but I do know that I looked at it and it felt to me like maybe the communication within some buildings wasn't great to solicit responses, was my guess to as what happened.
I think I do remember like there was some that maybe didn't even.
Yeah.
I do remember something on that there was maybe some specific classes. I don't know if it was whole building that actually did not do it.
Yeah, I do think it was a building issue for at least one, but it was a smaller, so I couldn't tell for sure
Yeah.
why 500 was too many for what I saw. So where else they were all specifically coming from and why I couldn't tell you. But I think it's important. I'm not going to read you through there. You can see that the trend was that the scores overall were higher in 2022. And if you go to the next slide, then Jenny, it has at the bottom the average. So the average score in 2022 was 3.6, went down in 2023 to 3.45. We have two issues, the non-response and then the wording change happening in that year. Which of those, if either, affected those scores at all, we have no idea. So then the 2024 scores, in my mind, when I saw these issues, thought, okay, 2024 is our baseline data. We can move forward and look for trends longitudinal now, and now we're getting a new survey system. So this year is going to be ground zero for me for this, but it's still also good to see, you know, where the increases or decreases, but just to recognize that the changes in the survey and the wording.
I assume some questions will be similar, right?
Yes.
But not identical, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We also, when we talked to Elmbrook, one of the things that we realized is like some of the wording of the questions leaves some interpretation to the person responding, and that we maybe need to have some explain hows or some clarification on what we are asking versus what they're responding to them. One of the places that I saw it was in the summer when we did our student engagement, when we were told we needed to work on communication. And I was like, yes. And then what everyone was saying, like, no, that's not what I mean, because I'm looking at it as a teacher where we have communications versus what a parent says our communication issues are. And so when we say communication is good, bad, or otherwise, what type of communication needs to be very clear when we ask some of those questions, just as an example, for an opportunity for how we word our questions. Then if we go, we have the family caregiver results. And as I mentioned, our highest scoring one here was that the school is clean and well maintained. And children have the materials they need and they are treated with respect in their school, were the highest. And then opportunities were that they received positive phone calls and emails, regularly receive feedback from their school staff. And I think both of those are maybe addressing communication, which is something we talked about a lot. And I believe rules are enforced consistently at this school. And then we again have and this time 4 years. Again, don't have my time machine to go back, but 2021, I am wondering if that was not given because that was our COVID year to students not being in the buildings consistently. Does anyone know for sure? I don't know why we have 4 years of longitudinal for the one. And rather than, I guess, but we could still email them home to the parents, right? And the parents could still do that. Also, again, less parents responding in 2023, but still not what I'd like it to be in 2024. I feel like we could get a few more families to respond, would be helpful to get a more clear picture of where we are at. So then if you go then to the last slide, you can see our averages here for the last 4 years and see that for parents, last year was the lowest scores we've had in 4 years for the average of those data items. So then the last slide we have talking about what we are doing with this data, and Jason was going to talk a little bit about that with you guys.
Thank you. And so just a reminder that each of our buildings really have worked with their leadership teams to craft 6 building goals, 3 student focus goals, and then 3 adult practices, professional practice goals, 2 of which are really around student engagement. So for example, the high school has a student engagement student goal, and then really engagement adult practice goal. And so what you see here is just some examples of what we're seeing at the building level to really engage our students and parents and to react to this data that we bring forward. And so some examples of student engagement goals are around respect, focus on respect. I know the high school is working on positive communications home. I think the middle school is really focusing on students liking to come to school and what does that mean, and talking to individual students, small groups of students, student advisories about what does this mean when you say you don't like to come here? What can we do differently? And similar notion here around our professional practice goals. That's really around our adults, right? And so again, positive feedback to students and feedback to adults, connecting with our adults or our parents around what's going on in the classroom and the progress being made towards academic goals. And then the last category is really around communication as a whole. Certainly an emphasis across the district and our buildings. Things like rooms that Melissa Lampe has brought forward. Things like the briefings, town hall meetings, and our district newsletters, and that's really being replicated at the buildings as well. Increase in s'mores, the weekly newsletters to families and to staff. And so it's a comprehensive look at how we're using the data and moving forward. So questions about any of the data or the work?
Do we have benchmarks statewide, nationally, et cetera?
No. Our move towards school perceptions will get some of that comparison data similar to what we see at the HR committee. So we'll have that, but not national.
Okay. To just look at 4 years and 4 numbers and see them consistently going downward is not encouraging. On the flip side, there's a lot of other macro, items going on out there where people in general could just be upset because, of inflation. So let's just rate everything badly because I can't buy a loaf of bread for $1. So that's why I asked if we had a national benchmark, because that national benchmark may say that every survey ever given from, how much do you like your car to are you happy with your kid's education could all be trending in the wrong direction. In which case I don't want to, and of course, Chris, you wouldn't read into these things more so than you should, because they're just numbers. But if there's underlying reality to this, I'd say that there's cause for concern, but we didn't need to understand more. That's just my high level assessment of it. Not to say that anybody's not doing a good job or that we're not focused on the right things. It's just that it'd be more fun if the numbers were going up.
Oh, for sure. My magic wand worked. I'd use it on that.
Exactly.
But I also think it's like, we don't have national, and we do look at like building wide, and we could say, okay, in this building, this seems to be more of an issue than in other buildings, and then can have conversations with the leadership in that building. Like, they always are going to recognize their lowest 3, and they're going to choose to work on one of those 3 as their student engagement goal. But then for us to be able to say, at your building specifically, this seems to be an issue versus, the other buildings. We do have, 9 different schools that we can compare the data between them, which is helpful.
So if we're ranking good at Webster on one and poorly at Schurz on another, we can go from Schurz to Webster and say, okay, how are you doing this differently?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that's good to have.
I would say that we connect with principals regularly on their goals, all goals. And it's pretty unanimous that principals light up when we talk about goals around engagement, right? And I think it's because there's more creative freedoms to how you get to that, right? And so, for example, Douglas this year has a Monday meeting with all students and staff minus kindergarten because they're still learning school, right? To start the week off, get students excited about learning. They talk about some academic achievement, they get them to class. That's different at the high school. They do a monthly pep assembly now about recognizing students and staff, and then positive feedback to parents. And it's looking different. Those stories can be replicated at every building. And so it's really exciting for me to watch how different buildings approach this, and the excitement that I see from building leaders and staff around this work. So,
Larry or Sam, questions?
No, I don't think so. I think it's interesting that in the student survey, students' perception of lunch increased over the last 3 years. Like they think lunch is better now than they thought it was a couple of years ago. And then also 18 and 19, questions 18 and 19 also had an upwards trend instead of a downwards trend, which is I feel my family is treated nicely or with respect at my school, and I regularly receive feedback from my teachers about my academic progress. And I think, you know, I've already talked about some of my concerns about subjective surveys and how even some of the things that you guys just talked about, I don't know how reliable information is when you get it from a survey, just because so many people come from so many different places. There was an SNL sketch, I don't know if you guys saw it, where they had like a quiz show, and it was, is this person a Republican or a Democrat? And every single person who came out kept on saying things and you couldn't tell what they were. It was really great. But that's what I think of things like that when I look at a student survey. Just because I believe rules are enforced fairly. That can mean so many different things to so many people, and two people could answer that the exact same way while feeling negatively about how they were treated in relation to one another. So I think that the ones that are showing an increase in perception tend to be a little bit more objective. I think the school having healthy food choices, family being treated nicely, receiving feedback, those are a little bit more quantifiable, and I think that there is a little bit more going on there. So I think that sort of thing is interesting. I don't know quite so much about the parent family.
Kind of on that subject, I participate at my office with the Gallup Q12. And to your point, one of the questions in there, I have a best friend at work. And I was like, does anybody have a best friend at work? And besides that, what's the definition of a best friend? I don't even have a best friend in my life, let alone a best friend at work. So I changed it when I administered, and then I try to compare myself nationally to the Q12, and I've internally changed the question to I have a good friend at work. Okay, well, that's different than having a best friend at work because your definition of it. So then how do I compare myself nationally to the Gallup Q12? Because I internally put a thumb on the scale because I didn't like the question. When it comes to Studer, or when it comes to school perceptions, is that the title of it, school perceptions? Are we going to be able to tweak them, or should we not? I mean, I would say we should not if we want to compare it nationally, but to Sam's point, there's some of them that are just too damn subjective that we don't even know what we're measuring. And I don't want to get into it where either the board or the staff is of the habit of wordsmithing survey questions, because they start losing value when you're trying to compare to yourself nationally or statewide or building to building. At the same time, I just want to understand your understanding of the mechanism by how this is going to be administered in the future and how much leeway we're going to be given in the questions as a district.
School perceptions would tell us that we don't want to do much tweaking at all.
Right.
But they will afford us the opportunity to craft some additional questions.
Okay.
So like, I think there's a bank of, I don't know, 5 to 7 questions on the staff survey that we developed as a district that, you know, when we present, we just say, these are our own questions. The rest are,
Okay.
By some.
And I would agree that we shouldn't mess with the ones out of the box, because it diminishes the value when comparing it, even if, although there could be some subjectivity to them.
Right. And I'll bring the latest iteration of the student engagement survey to planning and planning committee in January. Okay, for discussion.
Just like one more. Were there things, I don't know, I don't remember last year, were there different student engagement goals, plans that you did last, that we, at this time we're doing last year, that you're seeing any reflection? And I know, again, we're looking at just, maybe not, but I think it's important to not do things just to check the box.
Absolutely.
I just want to comment, like the communication, to homes, positive communication. I think it's like a great idea, as long as it's genuine. Feedback I'm getting is it doesn't feel genuine. It feels I'm checking the box. I'm sending home a nice note to the families and to make everybody feel good. So I just want to make sure that we're, not doing things to check the box, but doing it with some genuine, if you don't have, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I don't know, sometimes that may be the case, but, I did, like, as a parent, I did receive one. And when I brought it up to my son, he was like, I don't do that. He's very honest. And I'm like, well, you must be doing something good. But then when I found out that this was happening, so I just want to be sure that we're not making teachers to go out of their way to check a box and to find it to be genuine. So I didn't know if there was anything last year that you saw that did make an improvement, you are seeing some positive, or no, maybe that wasn't the right thing. It's not always the right thing, but you want to do it for the right reasons and be getting some change. Right?
Yeah, no, I can speak to that at the high school level. So last year we rolled out our Gosling Flight Feathers.
Right.
It's just the beginning of like gratitude, right? And so we're like, all right, like let's hit respect at a different level. So we attacked it through gratitude. We had 78 Gosling Flight Feathers, third trimester last year, which was good, right? We had over 350 first trimester this year, right? So what we had hoped to just see an increase every trimester. Now, like our building-wide goal is to get 1,000. I mean, if we get 1,000 recognitions,
Right.
which is astronomically higher than we thought. So it's fun, but I think through that, it's also creating a lot of conversations around other ways to recognize people and creating some other fun pieces. And that's good feedback with our positive communications. Because yeah, totally. And what we're seeing too, and I agree, like it should always be genuine, and so and at the same time though, just by creating a link of communication or by connecting some dots to some parents, the sort of conversations that are coming out of that, are then it's a dialogue or, oh, great. Hey, I have you right now. Can we talk about this? And even that, I think, whether hopefully families are feeling it, but I know a lot of teachers have anecdotally said, oh my gosh, like it was so good to talk to this parent, or this family, or some people have said, yeah, like, the positive piece was good, but actually they brought up X, Y, and Z, and then we were able to solve this other problem. So that holistically, we're just trying to like figure out on the whole how we can keep moving forward.
No, I appreciate that.
And I would say that this action plan process that we've introduced is really action research, right? We're asking teams to look at data, look outside of their building, whether it's across town or across the nation for best practices, and then develop a plan. And so I would say to your question, there are varying degrees of positive numbers based on their work. But that's part of the process, right? And it's a process is to look at data, be informed, look at research, develop a plan, and then respond accordingly. And so the action plans that we're seeing this year are in direct response to the data. That's the exciting part for me. And thinking about what we can do differently or better consistently.
No, I agree. Yeah, and I didn't mean it as like, don't do that.
No.
Oh, yeah.
My
It's good
son is
feedback.
a very
Yeah.
brutally, like, he
Yeah.
doesn't realize when I think sometimes kids too, especially high school level, they may not realize that they are making an impact, or they are looking,
Absolutely.
that teacher may appreciate how they're acting without even realizing they're acting that way, you know what I'm saying? And it was a English class, which is not his, he's like, I don't want to read in front of the class. I'm like, but you are, and you're doing it. So
Yeah.
it was a good conversation for
Yeah.
him and I, but some other parents have been, just asking, and change is good. And I think it's something they're obviously realizing. I would look at it as if parents are like, oh, I never used to get this before.
Agreed.
It means it's doing the right thing. There should be recognizing that. So it's. People want change, but they don't always like change, right? It's finding that balance. I agree.
Lori, some of the buildings too did use their 2023 score and then like target that. Not all 20, they picked one of the 22 target and then looked at the 2024 score and they had like a goal to get it from this score to that score. So
That's
it was
awesome.
used last year
Yeah,
in that.
yeah.
But again, targeting all 20 areas is not something,
No.
so they usually picked one and then in that building look for specific growth in that area.
Okay,
No action items from that?
no action items.
Okay. All right, our last item on the agenda is just our final look at the WHS course book and course book updates. Mr. Kerr had brought the course proposals and some minor adjustments such as language adjustments and or needing to remove courses for various reasons. He did update a few other changes at the end of November that you can see at the highlight at the bottom of the course book update piece. We had modified the AP prep language per ed services. And Josh, I don't know if there are other things that you want to clarify here.
No, just that in any 90-page document, sometimes there's always Easter eggs, that you find when you go through, or when 50 people go through with the fine-tooth comb. So these reflect that. So there's just some minor adjustments here and there, but with the ultimate goal of just communicating clearly what our options are, and erring on the side of being thorough.
And then the final course book will need a resolution just for approval moving forward. And in the past, I feel like we either haven't done it or it has been done in like February or March, which is after the students have seen it. So our plan moving forward is to bring course proposals in November, the final course book with those updates in December, and then in the December board meeting, we would just move to approve the full course book annually.
And I'm just, you're highlighted in yellow for the meeting minutes from last month. Josh was Ed Service Committee, supported Spanish 5 and 6, German 5 and 6 to the Laude course offerings, and asked administration to revise the course book AP descriptions to better reflect the level of rigor in those courses. Is that what I'm reading in the yellow here?
Correct.
That's the
It's the last bullet point.
last bullet point. Okay, so you did get that taken care of off of the last Ed Services meeting, given that that was a quote unquote action item.
Yep.
Okay. Are the only course changes the ones that were brought forth last month? That was the only real changes. So Jesse added a few and took out a few, and then those, just like I said, the addition of was it German 5 and 6 and Spanish 5 and 6? Yeah.
Correct. And then it was brought up at the last board meeting with the updated flow chart. That was not included in the proposal at Ed Services in November.
Right, that was the that was tech ed
Correct.
chart.
Yep.
Oh, is that what he handed out, Kate, to us?
That's what Jesse handed out, but it never made it into the meeting minutes, I don't think.
It didn't make it in the meeting minutes, but I believe there was a change that from what we had in the meeting minutes compared to what's actually going to be in the
Yeah, I'm looking at that now on page 89, I guess, or something very.
Beat me to it.
Yeah, it's very similar to what we saw. I don't know if it's identical to.
I've almost memorized it at this point,
Yeah.
but I can't remember that page number.
I'm looking at the
144.
Yeah, the one,
Tech engineering.
Thank you. Yeah, page 89.
Yeah.
If you go to 89, then that would further reflect to at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, I don't have anything granular to add to this. I think we hashed it out last time.
All right.
So if we need to approval in the resolution and do that, and is that just for the high school, or do we have to do a middle school course book too, or just the high school?
I don't think we've done a middle school course book like that in the past. We can.
I'm a little bit surprised we have to approve the whole course book. We approved the additions and subtractions. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it, but.
We had that discussion down there too, about whether or not we need to bring the full course book, or not.
Yeah.
Katie Perkle has memory of bringing it in like February or March in the past, which seemed late because at that point it's already printed.
It's already.
So, my figure was if you wanted to get something out at that point, we would, just delete courses. So I had that debate as well, because it's not something we've done in the past.
Lori or Sam, or if Craig's still on, I mean, I don't think it's policy that we have to approve the course book. We have to approve curriculum changes. We can throw this in as a resolution if we want to. It'd be I hate to even call it a formality. It'd be a non-policy policy that we approve it. And is that something we want to do?
Would that be the place to put it?
I'm kind of the same opinion
It's
that
like when we do the special education procedures that we have.
we just have to do it. We have to rubber stamp
Yeah,
it.
I believe it is.
Okay.
But I think the Jenny was saying, it's come when it's already been, so I mean, it would make sense. If we're gonna do it, let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I'll see if we can put it on the consent.
Well,
agenda.
I hate to, if Craig, if you're still online, we should figure out where the policy is on this subject and find out if we're lined up with it in Neola, just for the purposes of being consistent.
Well,
Funny
Sarah
you
and I are
mention that
spending some
because
quality
we're doing
time
that right
reviewing
now.
it.
Okay.
So I will look through that.
I,
as
I'm,
well.
nobody will remember I said that. And we'll forget about it when we get to Neola, but if we have to, I like to do what you say and say what you do. That just be consistent.
All right.
Okay,
Action items moving forward. I have a December board resolution for the 6 RMS courses. The approved course book for the high school on consent agenda potentially, but then look into Neola as to how we should move forward with that in the future. A subcommittee for our summer school, 2 or 3 meetings in January, February with Jason Whitaker. And then I was going to add a reference to class size policy on the course proposal form for future use.
Remember January, OE.
No, but topics next month for January, which we won't meet till January 14th, which I think will be the longest stretch without an ed service.
Yeah, this
meeting
one
in a
kind
long
of came
time.
quick and then,
Really quickly.
yeah,
And
I was
then-
like, oh.
Yeah, me too. And then so the next one would be January 14th. We'll have to work through open enrollment numbers. At that point, I was going to revisit the curriculum calendar. And just to ensure we're on pace with that. And then, any other items, let me know between now and then.
given that the state report card, we bumped that from the November full board meeting just because we knew the November full board meeting was gonna be full, which means that the state report card's gonna come up at the December board meeting, at the full board meeting. I'm not 100% sure in times past if that was always something that came through Ed Services first. For some reason, I thought that it might have, but then I know that that's something you can't share with the board until some certain date in November anyway. And so is it at Ed Services or is it not? I guess my question in bringing it up, if the first time the board's gonna see it in December, do we want to leave an opportunity in January for Ed Services to discuss anything about it deeper than what the board would dive in? I'm
I
not,
think we're used to, we did data, we did data meetings, and we also had that round.
yeah,
Rob, whatever you wanna call it, so I know
Yeah.
we've done it differently, it seems like every year,
Exactly.
so.
and so I'm not saying put it on the agenda, but let this leave a placeholder for it in case there are some things that you guys want to do from a data perspective on that, and whether that's full board or whether it's Ed Services. I would assume that should be something that Ed Services is the
Yeah.
clearinghouse of that information
And what I will
first,
say
but
is,
that's just not the way it works out every year.
yeah, the beginning of December. So let's say that Ed Services falls in the beginning of December,
Mhm.
right? Depending on when Ed Services would fall in November, it could still be embargoed, which means we
Right.
would be able to talk about it.
Exactly.
But if the December meeting was amenable, it's not embargoed at this time. And so it could fall under Ed Services every December to then have a full discussion at the December board meeting, which would then prevent any sort of backfilling, right? Present it at a full board meeting and then talk about it at Ed Services, right?
This is my point,
Yeah.
is that, and I'd like to have, Chris to have a running start on it to make sure that there's not a bunch of bad conclusions drawn
Sure.
without the ability to dig into it a little bit deeper. And so it's appropriate, I don't want to say that it's embargoed, but that there's an opportunity to digest it before it becomes fully public. I'm just trying to figure out how we line that up. And so we'll find out what happens in December.
Right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And it's a moving
I know
target
many
every
don't.
year, the date of embargoedness.
Right.
Okay,
Like, they don't tell us that until like
okay.
late October.
Well, let's just put a placeholder in case we want to talk about it more in January.
Mhm.
If we don't get questions asked and answered in December at the full board, we can have an opportunity to take a look at it a little bit deeper in January. If there's something there that we want to hammer on.
Mhm.
And get maybe the rest of the board may have, and then we can kind of get a feel. what
Yeah,
everybody's
questions and they
thinking.
can be discussed and then reported back. So those could all come up in December and then we can look at it in January. Okay, no, that is correct, Jenny, you hit all the action items that I had remembered. Which I don't write them down, you do. And Jason, as far as those meetings, I would encourage you to get to Lynn early. And I will have next, it's not this Monday, it'd be 2 weeks from yesterday, to ask the full board if they're interested in participating in a summer school subcommittee. And we'll all see each other on Monday night as well, or a good portion of us. I just want you to get out in front of that, because I don't like to be playing catch up and then find out you only have time for one meeting and it happens to be March 15th. So I just want to make sure we get out in front of that. I'm just trying to getting 3 of us in a room sometimes is difficult if we're not planning on it. So yeah, try to get that to Lynn, and or maybe a description of what that might look like after you talk to central office and the other people who've supported summer school in the past.
Sounds good.
Okay. Craig, anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. Nothing else. We're adjourned.
Right, quite fun.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you.
Is that early?